The first step in the process is kind of auditing what the strengths and the weaknesses are of the candidate, and that's partly done by your own observations, how you see how the individual kind of comes across, but also what people out there kind of think about it. Sometimes the press will have a kind of particular point of view which may be actually quite dissonant to where the public are. So you'll try and understand that. There's a variety of different techniques that you can do to understand that. Qualitative research like focus groups, but also kind of quantitative research, which will give you an idea of the magnitude in terms of the different strengths and weaknesses of that candidate. I think there's only two things that matter basically, which is strength. So communicate that you're strong enough to kind of cope with the challenges that the country faces, and that you're strong enough to make some very tough choices. And secondly, and this is massively underestimated, which is optimism. A sense of optimism that no matter how great the challenge, that you can actually overcome it. Because it's very hard to dislike an optimistic personality. That was FDR's great gift during very difficult times. That was Reagan's great gift in the 1980s. And so strength and optimism, to me, are the two most important dimensions in presidential politics. I mean, the greatest thing that I ever learned from anybody was a guy called Jeremy Muir, who said that the way that a brand is built is the same way in which a bird builds a nest, by the scraps and straws that you chance upon. And something that I kind of write about in the book, Business of Brands. And what he means by that, which is, in some ways, you're not really in control of the perceptions that kind of get built up about a company or an individual, but the thing that you do control is the scraps and straws. So you may not control the actual shape of the nest, but you can control elements of it. So your job is to make sure that the best scraps and straws are available for the public to kind of make up their impression. I think the first thing that you've got to do is reassure people that you understand the scale of the problem. You're not denying that it's a problem, but secondly, that you've got control. So one of the things that you would often do in an issue like a flood was make sure that the Prime Minister goes and visits officials who are kind of dealing with it, which shows that you're in control, that you're on top of the detail, and that you're really concerned about how this gets done, and you're making sure that the police or the emergency services are kind of doing their job. If you look at a counterpoint to that, one of the real problems for President Bush on the Katrina hurricane is it looked like he had another guy, Brownie, who was doing a heck of a job, and that showed a kind of lack of control. And when you let the perception of a lack of control kind of build up, it suggests kind of weakness and incompetence, and that is a very dangerous place for any leader to get into. The minute that the public sense that you're uneasy with the challenges that you face, even if you are, or that you're not quite clear as to how you see your way through, that will create real fear amongst the public. So therefore it's very clear for you to communicate directly to the public, communicate consistently to the public, but give them a sense of direction as to how you're going to get out of it. Gordon Brown kind of experienced a number of different crises, from kind of floods to the financial crisis, and what he did in quite an exemplary way was display kind of real grit and determination to kind of see the country through, and that's a very kind of likable feature. I don't think you have to do a lot of kind of positioning, because in some ways it's kind of very obvious, which is in the case of Gordon, his premiership was defined by the financial crisis and his response to that financial crisis. Somebody once said to me that every Prime Minister gets asked one big question, and their premiership is defined how they answer that question. Some are asked a big question and they don't answer it particularly well. In Gordon's case, it was a huge question, which was, how does the UK deal with this crisis? And not only how does the UK deal with it, how globally do you get coordination to make sure that we don't turn a Great Recession into a Great Depression? And I think, over time, people will come to realise how right he was in terms of how he responded to that crisis, and how where we are now, the very quick withdrawal of fiscal stimulus is having a negative impact on global growth prospects, and I think the more that is actually seen, people will understand how right Gordon actually was in terms of his approach.